Let's go, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the LA Poker Roundup. It is September 10th, 2024, and this is episode 54. As you can tell, things look a little different here this week, and we have ourselves a very, very special guest on the show this week. As always, I am your host, Ty Dobberton, with my co-host, Derek Kwan, and this great-looking fella right here is Barry Greenstein, a man who probably needs no introduction, but I'll do it anyways. Welcome to the show, Barry, three-time World Series of Poker bracelet winner, Poker Hall of Famer, author of the classic Ace on the River, known to many as the Robin Hood of Poker for all of his charitable work, and it's probably quite considerable since checking Hendon real quick, he has over 8.6 million in lifetime cashes.
Unbelievable. 8.6 million.
And also a local LA grinder, blaster, just like the rest of us. So welcome to the show, Barry, and thanks so much for coming on.
Sure, good to meet you guys.
Yeah. Now, I think we've both played with you before down in LA, down at the good old bike. Not sure. I don't think I've ever played with you anywhere else. I'm not sure if you play anywhere else. Is the bike typically where you play when you come down to LA?
Well, I've played live poker one time in the last 2 years outside of the World Series, and that was that was last weekend at the bike. So it's been hard for you to play with me.
Well,
and the reason is because we had to move up with family. I was getting older, and so we've been here for a little over a year in the Bay Area, where I checked out all the clubs, and it's different than LA. They each basically have like one game that I might play in. And if I was like your age, I might sit there, wait to get in the game, or wait or play when the game is good. But at my age, I'm not going to be sitting around a casino. So it became really obvious that I played in the Bay Area more than 20 years ago before I moved to LA. I moved to LA because the games were bigger in LA. Mm-hmm. But LA, even though we have like 4 main casinos where there's poker, there's always other games you could play in while you're waiting for the game that, let's say, you want to play in. So there's stuff to do. It's not this way in the Bay Area. It's really gone downhill.
That's too bad. That's tough to hear. They need to get their own San Francisco Poker Roundup to drum up the support and get things going up there. So,
yeah, I think that's really the difference. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah. Obviously. Hello, everyone in the chat. We've got a pretty good, pretty active audience out there already. Thanks for joining us, Queens of Poker, Jeff, Frank. Jesse, everybody, Scala. So welcome. Be sure
everyone's saying hi to you, Barry.
Okay. Hi back.
Yep. Once we get rolling, make sure to leave your questions.
Yeah. I just want to say something. I do things like this when people ask me. I did one with a high school kid about a month ago. I normally just do them because people seem to appreciate some things I have to say. I'm obviously getting older, and at some point when people say, he's totally irrelevant. He's bringing up Beatles and the Who references. I don't know what he's talking about. or really, my real demise, I'm sure, is going to be where it gets to where they say, I've heard every story he's ever told. Because as you get older, you get my age. That's one of the reasons I try not to do too many. I don't want to oversaturate, because I am going to end up telling the same story twice and not know it. It's okay to tell the same story twice, but not bad when you get so old you don't even know you're repeating yourself.
Right. Hey, well,
I think most of our fan base is going to love to hear your stories over and over again, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm positive you're going to have new stories for me to hear, and that's all that really matters, right? Is that Derek and I enjoy it. And trust us, we're older than we look, so we'll be plenty attentive when you're talking about the Beatles and the Who and whatnot. So.
I did see Linkin Park got a new female singer to replace Chester.
I heard that.
I just found that out yesterday.
So I do know stuff because I have kids, and my kids and I share music, but I don't get to see them that much.
Awesome.
My kids are older than you guys, by the way.
It's close, actually. I'm not sure if that's. I don't actually. I would bet 100% bet that they're not both older than Derek. But
I've got 6 kids. The oldest one's 50, so I don't know.
Well, we can talk bets later.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Derek. You want to kick us off?
Yeah. So Barry, let's start with how did you get your start playing poker?
Well, of course, the people who are listening to me probably got their starts playing games like video games, stuff on computers, which didn't exist when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you played sports and you played card games, you played board games. I played canasta and Jim Rummy with my mom every day coming home from school. And my dad played poker in the Army in World War II. He was a winning player. And so it was kind of normal when I was about 12 years old when someone said, "Hey, there's a poker game you want to play." We had poker chips. My dad showed me, even though in the Army they played 7-card stud, he showed me like 5-card draw. So I had some idea. And so I went to a game, and fortunately, I won $12 worth of quarters, I think, the first time I played. And
At 12 years
uh,
old?
at 12,
Wow.
and might not sound like a lot, but,
Oh, that must have been a lot.
was pretty good. Well, what was really a lot is the second time I played, I think, and again, my memory might not be right, I won $16 worth of quarters, I think. And what the problem was is I was the youngest one in the game. I skipped a grade, so even the kids in my own grade were older than me. And some 16-year-old kid who was in the game didn't like me beating him, and he chased me. Fortunately, I was second fastest in my school, so I got away with all these quarters. I'm grabbing quarters in both my pockets. I'm sure I lost a few dollars as I'm running away from this kid, but that was my second time playing poker.
The important thing is he wasn't the fastest kid in school, since you were only the second. So,
well, he was 16. I was on the track team. We had a track team that
nice.
I was the third left.
So that sounds like right from a young age you were being put into harrowing situations for your gambling right away. Is this?
It's not. I wasn't raised materialistically. It was more competitive. In my day and age, very different than the people who play now. Almost everyone played sports. I played baseball every day as a kid. That was the national pastime. Eventually, at 12, I started playing golf and became a good golfer. It was all about competition, and so poker was kind of a natural thing to transition to if you're someone who's a competitive person. Now, people now also compete, but they compete in Fortnite and other things like that, or Magic the Gathering. Like one of my kids played that, and then transitioned. And my nephew,
player.
Yeah. So my son or my nephew, Michael Lynn, he was like number one online for a couple of years when he was young. When he was 16, he went to Amsterdam for the World Championships because he qualified.
Nice.
And when he was 21, he played in the World Series of Poker and won a $600,000 bracelet.
And never played Magic again.
Unbelievable.
And he still hasn't come back to. I don't know if he's played another event since then.
Oh, yeah, that's smart, right?
I think he ended up taking the money and starting a business. But anyway,
beautiful.
I'm just talking about the different way we transitioned. So I played sports a lot when I was a kid, and so I competed. I competed in poker, and I was good at it. A lot of people ask me, "Do you still love poker?" I never played poker because I love poker. I was a mathematician. I was passionate about math, computer science, golf. But poker was just more a way I could make money if I needed to. And so when I was in college, I remember tuition was $315. Some kid said, "Man, I don't have money for tuition. My parents aren't helping me, whatever." I said, "Well, I know where there's a poker game. I'll play. I can make money."
Jeez.
Stuff like that. So I really just played poker. It wasn't ever my ambition or like I said, I wasn't raised that materialistically. But I knew I could make money if I needed to.
So what I'm hearing is that you were just a natural at poker, and you just never had to study, and the game just came easy to. How did you get to be so good?
Well, there was no such thing as studying. Any poker books, which I did read, were about funny things about situations in poker. There was no learning from a poker book. Okay.
Right.
So that didn't exist. So you guys, again, people now come a different way where there are videos, there are books that actually could help you play poker. There wasn't any such thing. The first book that maybe people talked about helping them play poker was Doyle's Super System, which is in 1975 or something like that, somewhere around there, maybe a year or two after that. But that was the first time. But the other books weren't. There wasn't, like I said, there wasn't even something that said how to play 7-card stud or something. Didn't exist. It was just storybooks.
So how did you?
Well, the way I learned, the way pretty much everyone learns to play, which is you play with other people. If someone's doing something that works, you say, "Okay, why did that work?" And you think about it. You take a guy who I mentored. You probably guys know Phil Ivey. Well, obviously,
I've heard of him.
Didn't read poker books or whatever. But he's got a good memory, he'd think, and he is young enough that he played online too. Think about hands, watch other people, see what they do. And the same thing, every good player on some level learns the same way. Seeing someone who's got more experience and saying, hey, maybe I should adapt that. And losing and saying, what did I do wrong and trying to change that. The difference between when I grew up and when you guys grew up is you guys could play 100,000 hands and do that. Not only that, you guys could talk in chat groups and things like that. When I grew up playing poker and became, let's say, a winning player, I had poker friends, but once I became a real professional poker player, I intentionally was a loner because I didn't want to be codependent on anyone else's problems. Other people get into drinking and drugs, and you'd have to lend them money, stuff like that. And the other reason that I didn't want to do it is a lot of times there's only one game to play in it. If you and another person are close friends, you don't want to play against that person. So people often ask, who are your friends in poker? And I'd say, I intentionally really had no friends.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I had poker friends, but to me, friends are someone that I don't try to take money off.
That's
Poker friends
unbelievable.
I'll compete against. Yeah, so it's very different for me than you guys, just because the world of poker is so much bigger now.
Yeah.
You can actually have friends and have opponents, and they don't have to be the same person.
It's unbelievable the way you describe things. Is number one, you didn't really have a true passion for poker. It was just something where you made money. And then you also didn't have a network that you learned from, and you didn't grow up during the phase of like online poker, like you're saying, chat and networks, and you're in the Hall of Fame. So that it's unbelievable that you started from there and you right now are in the Poker Hall of Fame. It's absurd.
No, it's not really absurd, because if you're an intelligent person, which I like to think I am, and I could have gotten a degree in psychology. My dad had a degree in psychology. I'd read all his books before I went to school. When I took psychology in college, I remember in the first psychology class, and I had this in a few classes because my dad only let me skip one grade, and I really should have skipped more, where there was always like one dot, like at 98 average, and then the second person would be about 85. Well, I was that guy at 98. I had never studied until I was a graduate student. I didn't even know people did that. Okay. I graduated college by the time I was 19, and I'd written my PhD at 22 and passed all the things. So I really, academically I was good, and I was good in psychology and good in math. Okay.
That sounds like a good recipe for a poker player to me.
Exactly. So it really, I could read people really well. And the other thing that's important is, it's not that I don't steam. We all do. We all play worse sometimes when, things are bad. But because I got my training playing sports, in sports, I would never, like if I played baseball, I got hit by a pitch. I'd never cry about it. I'd go to first base. In golf, I've never thrown a club or sworn. I was a good golfer. I won golf tournaments as a junior golfer. So the way people often ask, why are you calm in these situations? My training is really in sports. So I get upset even nowadays when I watch like even a LeBron or a Luka Doncic whining to the referees.
Yeah, because even in sports,
where their team is now playing 4-on-5 at the other end of the floor, and I learned actually I'll give you the last two times I whined. I mean, to myself, of course, I've whined, but openly. I was on the track team. I was the third guy, and we were the best team. And someone we were going around the track, and we're ahead. We're in first. I'm the third guy. We got a really fast guy. Bruce is his name, who's the anchor leg. And one of the spectators walks and knocks me down. Intentionally, walks because we were going to win, so his school could win. It was this track where there were spectators around the track, okay? And I start yelling at whoever I could, not even at the guy, at whoever the referee is. That guy knocked me down. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. And I thought my team, did you see what happened? That guy intentionally walked out and like tripped me, knocked me down. And my teammates said something that kind of helped me long term. They said, you should have just gotten up and run. Bruce is really fast. Even if you got behind, Bruce would have won it. And I realized, and again, it's when I see these athletes do it, they never matured psychologically. A lot of them were really talented. Everyone's kind of kissing their butt saying how good they are. And you can always see the ones who didn't go to college. That hurts them a lot. Because even a LeBron or a Luka who didn't go to college, they would have had their friends tell them, don't act like this. You're being a monkey, whatever. And your friends call you out. And I'm not saying I didn't get called out by my friends for negative things too. That's the whole point. I did. That's where you mature. one of the big things going through college is you mature. Even in poker, you can watch and you see the way some people act. You can kind of see that guy never was in the friend group, which happens in college. People always think it's what you learn in college. No, two things are important. The socialization, where you have people who are your peers call you out and it helps you mature as a person. And the other thing is you learn to complete, well, for most people, a 4-year task and show that you can do it.
Sure.
So like, I hired people when I was at Symantec, and it's not, I wanted them to be able to program because I'm hiring programmers or sometimes testers or other jobs. But knowing that they completed a 4-year degree meant they can complete the projects that we're working on. So people always say things like, hey, what I learned in college, I'm not learning for a job. That's not true. What you learned in college is how to be a better human and how to complete a long-term task. And that's what we want to know. The other stuff that you learn on the job, we can teach you. Okay, so anyway,
absolutely.
So you can see how I, have the skills. It's kind of a natural development, and it's not that funny. And the one thing I was going to address Derek about, saying, "Oh, you didn't do it. I've never used a solver. I've never used a heads-up display, and I've never been on a forum with other people." But you still learn from other people at some level. Even when I'm better, most of my life I was the best player and the biggest winner in the games that I played. But there still would be some problems people would give you or play a different way that you'd say, that guy's pretty effective. One thing that I remember has happened many, many times, where someone will say someone's a horrible player, but he's winning. And then I'll analyze and I'll say, yeah, this guy does some dumb things, but he's got to be doing some good things too.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That are able to compensate for the bad things. If I can incorporate some of the good things, which is why I was 3-betting people before anyone started doing that kind of stuff when I was young. All the things that people write about now, I did when I was 20 years old.
I remember you had a 100% C-bet at one point.
No, I didn't. But that's the funny thing too. Not true.
That's what it felt like to them.
No, but you remember, the things you're watching are edited.
Yeah.
I would always get people say funny things about, hey, C-bet. I did C-bet more than most people, and eventually people who thought I'm C-betting 100% times said, I've got to start C-betting more than I was. They used to just give away pots for no reason.
Yeah.
And now they're not doing it so much. So basically people started catching up with more scientific study to what I already knew at 25 years old.
All right. Yeah, no, I hear you. And, I think a lot of what you're talking about with what you see in some of these athletes that maybe jumped into the limelight early, I think that we kind of saw that in poker too with some of those kind of frowned upon internet hoodie behaviors, right? These are people who just played online, didn't play with real people, didn't necessarily go through college, didn't necessarily go through a regular kind of life, right? And then the behaviors at the table, we kind of had that same sort of thing, whiner, entitlement, that kind of thing, right? So I see a lot of the same stuff.
So many of them became bad live players.
Sure, yeah.
They couldn't read. They didn't. It's kind of like the psychological study of monkeys that have never been around other monkeys, and they don't know pain. They don't know happiness, and you see that on some of the internet players.
They came with a whole other section of skills they were missing.
Yeah, totally. They're just not there, and as a result, because live poker is my native way to play and looking at what's going on, I know it. Like for instance, I know what to look at when people are thinking about their hands and how they're holding their chips and what they're doing and getting patterns on people. But I noticed when I first played with even, a good player like Patrick Antonius, just made it to the Hall of Fame. When he first started playing live, he actually did play live before online. A lot of people don't know that. But he would be so bored. He didn't know what to look or what to think. He's a great player. I'm not trying to put him down. He's a friend of mine. But it's just, they had to learn. And what you always find out in anything, poker, whatever it is, basketball, the intelligent people, the good players, they'll adapt to the situation. So a lot of times people will say, well, would you, for instance, one thing that's changed over time is bet sizing. A lot of this is done by computers and things like that, or learn from that. Well, whatever new advance comes, it's not like I wouldn't have been able to adapt to it or I can't adapt to it now. So sometimes say, hey, you've never learned to use a solver. Well, I do things that are better than a solver. I've heard people talk about things on a solver on a show I'm on. I'll say, these morons, they don't know how to play poker. Don't they know that I'm doing that because of what the guy did the previous hand and that he's stuck and that's why I did it? This guy's using a computer program like people are robots. So I kind of laugh at the modern day player when I see these people. Yeah, they're better than me at what I call the blackjack of poker. Even things like a push shove chart that I have used. I've seen people who are going to fold. So I can shove. It doesn't matter. I don't have to look at a push shove chart. I can be much looser, or a lot of times it'll depend on how many chips they have. I remember I was in one of the bike things where the two guys in the blinds had the same chips as me, and a push shove chart would have said to fold my hand, but I know that if those guys had a lot of chips, I would fold my hand. But they had the same as me, and they're not going to go out at this point. I can shove. You see,
Yeah,
so there's
absolutely.
so many nuances that are beyond a solver, GTO, and all these things. GTO is a non-losing strategy. It's not a winning strategy anyway, So, and I'm a mathematician. I used to hear all these kids when I had Poker Road. They start learning GTO and all those things, and they do mathematical analysis. And some of them are good players. And I'd say, number one, your mathematical analysis. I have studied game theory. I'm a mathematician. Okay, I've gone through a PhD program. It's totally wrong. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you don't play anything like that.
Yeah.
Because you are a good poker player and you know how to play ace queen differently against all the different scenarios of people. So you're not playing like a blackjack chart either because you're a good poker player. But lots of people, when they're winning, like say, oh, it's the mathematics. That's what I'm doing. I'm better at mathematics than other people, and that's why I'm winning. No, you're winning because you read situations. If you're playing live and you don't read what other people are doing, you're not going to win.
Yeah, I think we agree with you wholeheartedly, Derek and I. And we've talked about that a lot, about how especially when you're playing in LA, you're insane to try and emulate those math kids, right? And I think to back up your point, a lot of the kind of the sites, a lot of the big pushes for all these coaching trends are they're saying exactly what you're saying. They're saying like, hey, we have this GTO, but we no longer advocate trying to play GTO. We're going to try and use the tool to exploit harder, right? So I think people are coming around to what you've probably been saying this whole time, which is, what you just said there is, hey, you guys are crazy. Don't try and play like that computer. These are humans. You can learn to figure out what they're doing wrong, figure out what their mindset is, and then people are saying, let's use the tool to figure out the best way to squeeze them at that point, right?
Exactly.
So let me head over.
Computers will keep getting better because there is math behind it. Like even when there's a group at Alberta, which they're the group that solved heads up limit hold'em the first time.
Yep.
And they realized that, and I told them, I said, I can beat the bad players more than your computer because I'm going to exploit them better than your GTO strategy. And then they started doing things like they'd make different bots be wilder than GTO or pass, and they'd find out, hey, you see what works against different people, and then you use it and mix things up that way. So it ended up that non-GTO did better than GTO.
Interesting. Yeah, no, for sure, especially in a real environment that's not some kind of lab. That's so I'm gonna hop in the chat real quick. We've had a lot of people chatting, a lot of people talking, and a couple people. Hey, thanks guys for reminding everyone, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let me just quick run through before we scroll through too many pages. We have Jesse here who was saying he thinks he saw you and Phil Ivey in the bike playing some tournaments back in the 90s, and he was saying this is before anybody really knew who Phil Ivey was, and he thought maybe to your point, you said you were coaching Phil. Maybe he thought that you were putting him into some of those tournaments back then. Were you?
No.
Did you have a piece of Ivy?
No.
Oh, okay.
I lent Phil money, when he was younger, because we needed someone to play in some of the bigger games. We didn't have enough people. I always hoped he'd become a good player. He wasn't
you were
at
totally
the level.
Wrong about that. No.
I didn't know. Like when I first saw him play in the first few times, people were telling me he was going to be a good player, and I didn't see it. Frankly, he became a good stud player. But as he became my friend, I got to know him. You find out he's actually a pretty smart guy. A lot of people don't think he is because he isn't as articulate. A lot of people think he's like an idiot savant, not very smart, but happens to be real good at poker. But a lot of that, I think, is racist. They just figure, hey, he's this black kid. He's probably not that good, But he's a smart kid. And although I, certainly helped him, and he does call me a mentor or whatever, he's still mostly self-taught, where he played a lot of hands. He has a really good mind, a really good memory. Even sometimes we get in arguments where I'd say, you're doing something really stupid. I remember one in particular. We were in Cabo when the internet went down. He had a place in Cabo. He was playing online. I was telling him certain things he's doing wrong, and he's arguing with me. Tells me, how come I'm winning so much money, all those kind of things. Anyway, he went to bed, and the next day when he woke up, he told me, I've been playing a lot of hands through my head where I would have played it differently, like you said, instead of what I did. I would have made more money. It was the most amazing thing he said to me. As he said, he's got such a brain that he has a catalog of all these things. And he's pretty amazing, actually. And the other thing that he's done better than anyone I've seen is he's able to really learn what other people are doing and take advantage of it. And there's been 3 different times where the best guy was doing the best at no limit hold'em, the best at PLO, and the best at limit hold'em, where he played them for a couple days, and he calls me up. He said, "This guy's not going to last the week." I said, "Oh, really? How much you had?" He says, "No, I'm down a couple $100,000, but I know everything he does now. I called him sometimes just to make sure. Now I know what he does. He cannot win." And it sounded like the stupidest thing, but I've learned as Phil has grown, don't doubt this guy. It's kind of like doubting Tiger Woods. You don't doubt him. He's got talents you haven't seen. And Phil was right. Each time he said the guy would quit within a week, and one time he told me 3 days. I don't think at 3 days the guy gave up. Phil won the money back and more. So it's just this amazing ability to know what people are doing and know how people will adjust. He's really good at that. Technically, I would say, he used to hate when I'd say, fundamentally he wasn't that good. I didn't think. And he got himself in trouble. But knowing what people were doing, he's really, top notch.
Yes.
And knowing how to adjust to what people are doing. He had to learn that. I used to just pound it into his head. Then one day, I don't want to go through the whole thing. It takes too long. He told me, "I'm going to do this, what you said." And I said, "They're dead. If you make this change, they're dead." He was always trying to run over people, him and Patrick and all these. And I did too when I was young too. When you're an aggressive player, which you don't get to see on TV, because on TV, there are reasons I had to play tighter. Because when I started bluffing people on TV, the wives of the players that I was beating in live games say, "Why are you embarrassing my husband?" So I had to tone it down, which kind of pissed me off. I remember one time Eric Liu, if you know who he is, where he called me on a bluff. I said, "Don't you watch TV? I'm a tight player. I'm an old guy. Old guy betting is a tight player." He says, "Everyone knows you're crazy. What do you talk about? I don't watch TV." But on TV, there were reasons I had to play tighter and couldn't bluff people that I'm playing with in cash games and winning money off. But now I do play. As you get old, you play tighter for a different reason, because you become a worse player where you don't know what people are doing.
Oh.
So now there are a lot of times I fold hands that I would have probably done something differently because I'd had a better feel for what's going on. That's just part of getting older.
Sure.
So I don't figure out the problem in real time and solve it.
Sure. And it sounds like you said, you played the World Series, but you haven't been able to play as much up in the Bay Area. You only came down to play in LA once in the last couple of years. So it sounds like in general, though, you also have just been playing a little less, maybe.
That hurts. I only played no limit hold'em once a year at the World Series.
Yeah.
So the first week, and a lot of times I'm playing the limit terms. I don't get much practice. Yep. And it's one of the reasons I went to the first time I played outside the World Series, partly for practice, partly there was something else I was doing. And I played, and it's embarrassing what happened. Let me tell you a couple.
Go ahead, yeah.
There's LA Poker.
Yeah, we would love.
First, I qualified with 120,000, 250s average, the second bullet. Then I played a couple bullets. I had good chips deep. I had 2 10s against 2 guys. One guy had ace-9 and one guy had ace-queen. I had it all the way to the river. I was going to have a lot of chips. And the ace-queen guy couldn't bust me. The other guy could. Ace came on the river, 2 outer. I went out. So I was frustrated. And then a couple days later, I played in another one. I had over 250,000 chips. I had over 100 big blinds the whole satellite, which is hard in a structure that goes up fast. So I had always over 100. Then we get to the end. I had a bad beat. I had jacks against ace-3. I lost that. I was over 300. That got me down to a little less than 300. And then, which if you guys played, that's still good chips. Yeah. And then 2 from the money or 3 from the money, I picked up aces. Some kid who beat me a pot earlier, that maybe I could have bluffed him out of, I don't know, but I gave up on the river. He raises, to 20. The blinds were 5 and 10,000. He raised him for 20. I made it 65 with 2 aces. I kind of, a little bit of an overbet, but normally I raise 3 times. Nowadays, people maybe raise 2.5 times. But at this stage, I'm going to bully. I'm going to, try to take advantage of the bubble. I don't want any accidents happening. Now he ships. I'm forced to call. He has 2 queens. He hits the queen. I go out. It was a countdown. I went out. So now I was really frustrated. So now I didn't play Sunday, which was the last satellite. But what I didn't know was Sunday was day 2A. I saw the satellites. They had one more on Sunday.
I heard about this.
So I came in Monday, and then they said, we were trying to find you. You blinded out.
We heard about that. Yeah, our friend Frank's in the chat. He said he was at the table with you for the Aces versus Queens, and I think he's the one who actually connected us to get you on the show. And he said he told us about that. Your stack blinding out, and they were.
So now I come in the next day, and they say we called what's his name, Mo in and he's in Turkey right now, and he didn't have your number. I said, well, you could go to the cage and they have my bicycle card, my number, or you could have look at anyone my age who was playing. They have my number. Billy Baxter was playing. He's got my number.
Oh yeah, he was in there. Yep. Oh geez.
Yeah. So they didn't think of people who would have my number, and I'm not going to be mad at Jeff. My own fault. I should have been more careful. But I got blinded. So now I had to buy into day 2. And day 2, I got down there and got kind of short, and I ended up being the bubble person.
You bubbled that one. Oh, geez.
So it's a very embarrassing several days I had in LA, plus paying for the room and all the stuff. I did some other things. So pretty annoying. But I wanted to tell you another story since we're talking about that tournament.
Yeah.
Is a friend of mine named Mike, who we call Mike the Shirt.
Mm-hmm.
He was about a little over 2,000 rated chess player when I first met him, but now he got up to about 2,400. So he would be the best LA chess player, poker player. He's a limit hold'em player, but what happened is he plays at the Commerce on the bike, and they were giving out. He plays like every day. He would get enough points to get like free entries and stuff.
Yep.
And he came in second in one of the tournaments with his free entry.
Okay.
So now he was at this one, and he told me, man, I had a situation where I had the guy covered in the small blind, and he had 100,000 in chips, and I had to fold aces. But if someone would have shoved with 300,000, I would have called with deuce 3 offsuit. Now, first, let me tell you about Mike. He's a chess player, which means he thinks about poker in a way, like, even though I'm not that good a chess player, he's always thinking moves ahead. Like he's thinking, like I see the internet players when they come to live poker, especially even online, because they play multiple screens, they don't think about what to do till the screen pops up. A poker player like myself, who's grown up live, I'm always thinking about, if this card comes up on the turn, I'm going to do this, if that, whatever. The internet players don't do that as well. And the other thing I'm thinking, if this guy raises, I'm going to do this to him. And that's the same as a chess player. Mike's thinking, I'm going to make this play. If he does that, I'm going to make this other play. Steps ahead. I'm not saying that I make the right play or he makes the right play, but it's kind of like the way we approach poker. You see what I'm saying? Which is a little different than people who grew up on the internet that are, I'm going to think about the problem when the screen pops up.
Right.
And I'm not thinking about what the guy's going to do in response because I got to go to another table.
Yep.
So Mike, first of all, I just gave, for those of you in the chat, why would he fold aces in the small blind, a guy he has covered, but call 300,000? The guy in the small blind had 100,000. The guy in the one of the guys at this table had 300,000. He was going to call him with any 2 cards. Any ideas? What it was is he had qualified already with 530,000 in chips, and now he had 400,000. So he didn't want to bust the guy in the big blind because it would only give him 500,000. It wouldn't be more than he already qualified. But if the guy with 300,000 raised, he was going to call, figuring that'll give him 700,000 if he wins, and if he loses, 100,000 is still enough to survive because they were on the bubble.
I totally get that.
So it's pretty clever, except for one thing, and I haven't even told Mike that because I like the story. I still think it was a good thought process from a 2,400 rated chess player. But remember, I'm a 2,800 poker player, okay? And here's where he's wrong, in my opinion. The guy with 100,000, the small blind, if he had raised all in, was going to fold. And the way you usually get more chips on the bubble is by is by abusing the bubble.
Right.
So pick up the 25,000. It was 10 and 10, 5-10 blinds with 10 in the middle. Pick up the 25,000 there. Keep raising all in against these shorter stacks. It's only going to take you 5 or 6 raises. You're going to have over your 530. So I actually think mathematically that my method's better than his, but I haven't even told him that. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Well, I totally get where he is, and I was in a similar spot the other day. I wasn't doing anything extreme to take advantage, but I remember when certain all-ins were happening and when certain people were thinking about their hands. In my head, I'm like, oh, I hope he doesn't go. Oh, I hope he doesn't bust. There was an all-in, and I actually was rooting for the small stack, and we were on the bubble because I was a little under average stack, and this was a bounty tournament. And I'm like, I want to get chips before we go to day 2 of the bounty. I'm going to bag no matter what. I don't want this to end yet. So I was thinking the same thing. But I'm with you. Once the blinds are big, it's... You see it all the time. You double up the short stack, you steal the blinds 4 times, and you're right back where you were. So that's
yeah, just keep doing it. So I think that would have been better. And it reminds me, the first place that I won was in deuce to 7, no limit. And Norman Chad didn't understand what I did. Howard Letter, and I'm going to pick the number, but I think it's wrong. He had 76,000 in chips. I was the chip leader, and I knew at the time he was going to pay me off because I was known as a pretty wild player then. I knew. I had him read real well. I knew what he had, and I knew he was going to pay me up. I knew he had a 9 or a 10 low. I counted his stack quickly. I saw he had 76,000. Chris Ferguson and whoever the other guy were had decent chips. I said, I don't want to knock Howard out. I want to keep him with 10,000. I bet 66,000. I left him with 10,000. This is when chips were 1 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
So the blinds advertising. And he called like I thought. I left with 10,000, and now I raised like they don't show it all because it's edited. I raised every hand for I don't know how many times till 5 where those guys couldn't call. I mean, give me 4 to a queen. I'm all in, and then Howard, finally went busted. And then I had to give up. And by this time, I was big chip leader and won the event.
ICM pressure before they had a word for it. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, later people came up with words for these things. Like I say, so many times people come up with these things for raising people to different places. I say, okay, now I know the name for merge play. I know the thing I've done where I didn't know where I was. Or what's the thing when someone raises? If you see when I won the World Poker Tour, I was just waiting for someone to raise and someone to call, and I raised with 9-3 offsuit. Squeeze. So I never had a word for it, but eventually they had a word for it. Everyone I did says, you're raising with 9-3 offsuit. I was waiting for those situations where I could make people think it looks stronger because 2 people are in. Now people know, no, it doesn't have to be stronger. But back then, raising multiple people looked like, oh, he must really have a hand. No, because you're really just raising the first guy. The second guy is called, he's not going to call. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I would do these things, and like over time, I learned, okay, now the younger players have a word for what I did 20 years ago.
Once we have a word for it, you kind of got to move on to the next thing, right? Because now everyone's doing it.
Everyone's doing it.
Right.
So Frank said not to make you feel any worse, but he said that stack you abandoned almost blinded into a min cash.
Oh wow! Well, I almost had 2 min cashes. Yeah, one on day 2A and one on day 2B.
Yep, he said it was very close. You almost got into a min cash.
The worst part is I was actually in the bike too.
Oh, you were there? Oh no!
I went there to eat. I had breakfast. I walked around. I just didn't walk around to the tournament place because I didn't want to play another bullet in the tournament after I got the aces beat.
Oh, geez. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So talking a little bit more about LA poker, we've talked a bit about the bike now. You said you came and you moved down to LA because the games were better. What were your favorite places? What would you say your favorite place to play in LA was? And who were some of your favorite players to play against?
Well, what happened is it's not that they were better, but they were bigger and there were more choices. And I was my whole life a no limit player, or pot limit. I was forced to learn limit because basically I busted the no limit games in the Bay Area, the no limit hold'em games, and sent the Vegas players and the Texas players back home. They were the only ones left. But so I had to learn to play limit, which I once said I'll never play limit poker, but that's all that was left in the Bay Area. So I learned to play limit. It took a while, and then eventually I learned to play 7. People think I'm a 7-card stud player. It was always my worst game. But what happened is even in those days, because I was a good winning poker player, I wouldn't get invited to these private games because I was a good player. And that even happened and eventually, which really killed me. I gave away a lot of money, to charity and stuff, but poker became privatized where I wouldn't get invited to games.
Yep.
So I had nowhere to play. So that really hurt me. Also, real estate hurt me, and the stock market hurt me too. But people don't realize there were years where I couldn't play in the good games because the real estate guys, the Hollywood guys, they're playing in those home games, and I don't get invited. And even when they're in the Commerce, there'd be set lineups I wasn't allowed to play in Bobby's or in the Aria. Set lineups to the big game. I can't play. I'm too good a player. East Coast, I go to the East Coast. Borgata, no, you're not in the lineup. You can't play. I don't want to name the players. They'd set it up. So when poker became privatized, it was really bad for someone like me.
Yeah.
Now they probably let me play. I don't have as much money, and I'm old, and I'm not as good a player. Now they'd let me, but when I was in my prime, or still close enough to my prime, at let's say 50, in the 50s, no, they wouldn't let me play. I remember Doyle one time he called me up and says, Barry, you've officially made it. And I said, what do you mean? Well, we were playing six-handed. We usually like to play seven-handed. And we said, we need to find another player. Nobody mentioned your name. What do you think?
Yep, that's sad.
That's great.
We made it.
Boyle,
Yep.
But anyway, as you probably know, I was playing big because I played with Larry Flint. Played at the Hustler. We were playing 4 and 8,000 when the casino opened. So that was what I mostly played, was the 4 and 8,000 stud game at the Hustler. But then eventually that died, and things happened in poker financially. The online stuff went down. I lost my Poker Stars, all the money I was making from that. I'd given away all my cash because I never thought I'd need cash anymore. My real estate was no longer worth its mortgages, after 2008. My tech stocks went down to nothing. So lots of things happened. Now I had to go back to, I thought I was retired, but now I wasn't anymore. And now the games weren't as big because so many of the games were big because the money trickled down from the online sites. People were getting a lot of money that way. Yeah. And now those things didn't exist. I just started grinding my way back. And still, a lot of times people see me playing smaller now in the cash games, and they'll say, why are you playing? And I tell them, like I say, about loving poker, whatever, if you ever see me playing, I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to pay the bill. I'm not playing for fun. I play to win. Even when I had a lot of money, I remember one time I was at the Borgata, and they always bug me. Hey, playing our game, it's $100 buying game. And I was walking to the bigger games. Finally, I said, okay, you guys, I'll play. And I played, and I tried to win. And I'm playing serious. They say, wait a second, why aren't you going all in? I bought it for 100. I say, because then you'll say you beat me. When I play in anything, whether it's tennis, golf, anything, it's the way I grew up as a competitor. If you beat me, you didn't beat me because I didn't try.
You wouldn't even let me beat you at sport.
Yeah, she said, I wouldn't let her. Not true. I let her win. But anyway, well, she got in golf. She got hit from where my drive is, so that helps her. But anyway, the whole thing is a competitor. I compete. I've always been someone who competes. So if you beat me at the bike tournament, it wasn't because I didn't take it seriously. I tried.
Now,
and I got knocked out. I tried.
I have played with you once, and I think it was 3, maybe 4 years ago at the bike. I think it's the only time I ever played with you, and it wasn't for very long. I did. You probably don't remember, but I was playing with you and with Larry, the floor guy, and we were having a great time. But I think it was probably only a half an hour before you got jacks under the gun and I got aces in the big blind, and that was it. And after you left, everyone that I told them, like, hey, I think that was Barry. I just knocked out Barry, and they're like, well, did you get a book? And I'm wait, he still gives out books? What do you mean?
No, that happened. She made me stop. Actually, when we started going to Europe, every time we go, those books are £2 each.
Oh,
and you have to shuffle them in the suitcases to get into the 50 pounds. He said, please, can you stop doing this? So instead, I like to tell people, I don't have any more books anyway. I tell people I got knocked out so many times I ran out of books.
Yeah. No, well, that's that was one of, and I had just started playing tournament poker in LA. I moved here, like 8 years ago. Started playing tournaments like 3.5, 4 years ago. So that was a fun boost here, and it's really, I'm a bit disappointed to hear that you've moved back to the Bay Area, and we're barely ever going to see you now. I was going to ask, have you ever thought about trying to, I'm sure you'd be welcome to getting onto like the Live at Commerce stream, going to play on some of those stream games again.
I wasn't, the Live at the Bike when it started, the first year I helped Bart and David. Mm-hmm. They were beginning poker players, and Evelyn was the name of the manager. Mm-hmm. And she said, can you help these guys out? So I went the first year, a couple episodes where the way they would commentate about poker, they would see who had the best hand counting the flop. Say, why is that guy folding? He's got the best hand. Or why isn't he raising? And I say, Bart, this is what he's thinking. And Bart became a decent poker player. Dave got into other things, but he plays poker still. But that was the first year. So I did that stuff. And what I did a couple of times, because the players, I remember there was a 4 and 800 limit game they had one time. And I'm commentating on it. The players were pretty bad. And I'm saying, when's this thing going to end? Normally, these games were smaller than I would play, but the 4 and 8,000 looked 4 and 800, even though I was playing bigger in those days, looked pretty juicy. So I said, I'd like to jump on that game. And they said, okay, we got another half hour. Then it ended. I jump in the game. I get in a hand. And remember, I'd played almost no. Once I became a big player, I'm playing on the Larry Flink. I'm just playing 4 and 8,000 here and 4 and 8,000 in Vegas. So even like if there was a 1 and 2,000 game, it'd be too small for me. But this, I played 4 and 800. And what happened was I got ace king and I 3-bet Johnny Chan and he 4-bet me and I called. 2 aces came and then another ace came and then a small card came. And, I bet the rest of the way and he just called me down. I showed ace king, I had 4 aces with a king. And then Johnny's going to throw his hand away. And then someone at the table says, you don't have a jackpot hand? And I didn't know what a jackpot was.
Right, because you
and
never
he didn't
play
know what a
rake
jackpot
games.
was either.
Oh my gosh.
Johnny will never show his losing hand. And they're saying to Johnny, turn your hand over. Now, I don't know if this is illegal or not because how these things are. So Johnny, meekly turns over his 2 queens. Then everyone goes, jackpot. We don't know what's going on, but it ended up, it was the biggest jackpot they ever had.
Oh, wow.
It had been built up over like a month. No one had hit it. And they'd opened up to all the games, including the one on Live at the Bike. This is like a new Live at the Bike's a new thing. And Johnny and I hit it. Now people start coming to us.
Rigged.
You guys don't need the money. What are you doing? We didn't even know we hit it. Johnny got the bigger end, I guess. I think there's a table share. I can't remember. But, I mean, it may not – now they have bigger ones. I think it was like a $75,000 jackpot, which maybe now they have bigger ones. But in those days, they were a lot of times 20,000 or something like that. So we won the biggest jackpot and like an entry into something else. I can't remember what it was.
That's hilarious.
Or a drawing. So that was my one time winning that. I mean, I've had table shares.
That feels like if like Jeff Bezos won the lottery or something. Like
Not fair.
Well,
I have not hit the bad beat at the bike yet. The one time I had a chance, some silly kid bluffed away the hand that would have hit the jackpot. We were pretty upset. So it's probably a similar kind of uproar, just the opposite way.
Yeah, I've had those. Perfect. I had one where there were 2 aces on the flop. I had jacks. Someone had queens. Someone had tens. There was a lot of action pre-flop. And then I thought on the turn, the 4th ace didn't come to the river. And I was thinking about that, but I said, I know I'm beat and someone's got an ace, and I folded. And it ended up, or no, whatever it was, the queens folded. Maybe I had tens. The jacks won the jackpot.
So whichever one of you didn't fold would get the small end.
Yeah, right. And I had tens. I might have called her. It's too long. I can't remember. Yeah. But I remember the guy who could have won the jackpot folded.
Yep. The bigger pair would get it. if there were multiple pairs involved.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Very cool. All right, Derek. Do you?
But anyway, I feel like the people that debate today, they don't answer the questions. Talking about the different casinos, as I always tell people, you could put a table out in the alley. If it's a good game, I would play. And so to me, as I go into different casinos, whether it's in our country, the East Coast, or Europe, I'm just looking at it as another poker table. I could care less what the casino looks like.
Pragmatic.
Makes absolutely no difference to me.
Yeah.
And, as a matter of fact, I used to tell people, I used to play in this one poker game in Decatur, Illinois. It's where my stepkids are from, where my ex-wife is from. Well, she's not from there, but she got married there. And they had, it's a lousy city. It was a city that died in the industrial age. Now it's a lot of drugs and things like that. But anyway, dangerous place even at night. Well, we played above a business in this poker game that started, let's say, at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. but you would not go to your car in the parking lot at midnight in this place. Too dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
So the greatest thing is nobody could chop out in this game. Everyone had to play till the morning
Oh.
when it was light out because it was too dangerous to leave the building we were in. So I used to say when I'd say, actually, I kind of like this place. No one quits the game.
That's really, really funny. So Barry, you've been playing poker for so long. So, tell us a little bit about this entire journey that you had. So you were obviously playing pre-Moneymaker. So what was it like, when Moneymaker won, caused this big poker boom? What happened, around like Black Friday when everything just went in the tank all the way to today where it seems like solvers are almost like dominating, the kind of the way the players are going?
Well, first of all, Chris is my friend. We were poker stars together. I like Chris. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But no, Moneymaker didn't cause the poker boom. The biggest thing that caused the poker boom were the online sites. People could play at home. They could learn poker. And the other thing is the online chat rooms. People could talk about poker, and that's what did it. Moneymaker was a good story.
Yeah.
And he probably helped the Poker Stars satellites for the main event. So he probably got more entries into the main event because people could say, hey, this guy had a $40 entry and he won the main event. But poker blew up because the poker on TV with hole cards, people playing online, that's what blew up poker, not Chris Moneymaker. Okay. No matter how much people, and Chris likes to take credit, he was a nice story. Okay. Some people like rounders, and that it all helped the thing.
Yeah.
But the online poker and poker on TV showing hole cards and chat rooms, those were the driving forces.
Yeah, it was a real confluence.
Yeah. And those extra other things we mentioned didn't hurt, but poker still would have blown up without those other things. It wouldn't have blown up without online poker, to the degree it did, and without televised poker being such a thing. But anyway, so I was ready to retire from poker, and then the poker boom hit. I was actually going to go to medical school because my wife had multiple sclerosis. And I remember I taught for 7 years when I was at University of Illinois, and I'd have to teach this math for these medical and business students. I remember thinking, these are going to be doctors. These kids are idiots, And because even though my daughter's a doctor, my daughter, Tina, Mimi Tran's daughter, she took engineering calculus because she's my daughter and got A's in that. They wouldn't let her take in pre-med any more math. They said it won't count towards your degree. You're in pre-med. They say nobody takes the engineering calculus sequence. They all take the business the qualitative sequence. But of course, she's my daughter. She's good at math. She's good at calculus. We do do homework together, do math together. That was pretty disappointing for her. But so I wanted to go to medical school. So I'm not saying my daughter's she's a pretty smart girl. Graduated from Michigan State. That's where she got her MD. But anyway, what was I thinking? I said Jonas Salk was my favorite American, probably curing, vaccine for polio and smallpox, stuff like that. I want to be someone who works on curing diseases. I never would have been someone who was a doctor who had patients, because I'd probably be, even though I'm not emotional at the poker table, it'd be hard for me to not to get too involved in someone's problems.
Gotcha.
Because part of being a good poker player is empathy, because you're able to see how people feel. So people might think I'm kind of a robot, but no, my empathy helps me as a poker player. It would hurt me as a doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
But I could be a research physician.
Right.
And the thing I could do, I have a bachelor's in computer science. I was one of the people in the first day of Symantec, so I'm ahead of people as far as being a computer programmer. Good enough, Bill Gates snuck in my office trying to offer double what Symantec was paying me. And I said, no, thanks. So I was well thought of as a programmer. Okay. And also as a mathematician. So I said, there aren't many people like me who have the math background, with the computer background, who could probably do the work to figure out some of these diseases and cure them. So that's what I plan on doing. But then the poker boom came, and I saw these young people who were going to be like the stewards of the game, let's say, who really I didn't think should be. I don't want to name names that I thought would be bad for like bringing the game into the mainstream.
We probably
that would probably make it go the wrong direction. Yeah. I said, it's going to bring it. I'm a normal person who can act normal, who can give good interviews, who can lecture. I taught math for 7 years at the University of Illinois. So if you see me lecture, I can lecture because I've done it. It's a natural thing for me. My sisters were professors also, both professors. My dad was a principal. So these things are pretty good for me. And so I could do that stuff. So I thought I was kind of needed. I was one of the old guard people who I thought was needed to help with the poker boom. And that kind of changed the course. And it cost me money. I was making a lot of money before then. I didn't play tournaments. Now all of a sudden, I had to play tournament. I was on something called Poker Superstars. Maury, who does the World Series now, said, everyone's won bracelets and done all these things. Phil Ivey won this, Dahl won that. You're there because you were the biggest winner in the big game. What are we going to put on the screen? He won a lot of money. And I said to Maury, well, when is this going to air? We filmed it in April. He said, it's going to air in like August. And I said, okay, I'll travel to a tournament. So I traveled to Mississippi, played the World Poker Tour event, and I won it. And I went to the World Series, and now instead of I used to just play the main event and maybe the deuce event, I played a few more events, but I did win the deuce event. And then I called Maury up. I said, okay, Maury, you can put World Poker Tour winner and WSOP winner under my name now. So that's how I started playing tournaments, more than just the main event.
So it sounds like you never really found or were never really in love with tournaments. If I'm gonna go out on a limb and say if you had to choose between cash games and tournaments, cash games were kind of where your head was at.
Yeah, well, it was, but not anymore because tournaments have changed. See, in the old days, tournaments were small. They didn't get the number of people we get in now. And also, the best players didn't play tournaments. We stake people in tournaments, horses, and bet on people. We didn't play in tournaments because the first place for the tournament is less than the pots I'm playing for. Why would I play a tournament? Except for the main event. First place in a tournament those days, like 40, 50,000. I'm playing in games where that's a pot.
Yeah,
sure.
So it didn't make any sense, But poker blew up, and of course now we have great players who are tournament players. But before the poker boom, we didn't have much of that. They were second-tier players. And so, yeah, now, of course, we have good players playing this. And now I kind of enjoy tournaments because the thing I like about tournaments is I like that we all buy in and we all have an even chance. Instead of some people can play a bigger game because they have more money. Those multiple rebuy things I don't like as much because now people with more money have a better chance.
Yep.
But playing in, let's say the main event is still in my estimation the best tournament. 10,000 is something people can satellite into, and we all start with 10,000. We all have a shot, and so I just feel it doesn't have a class distinction in some sense,
Sure.
if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So no, I like tournaments for that reason.
No, I'm right there with you. We've talked about this on the show a couple times, Derek and I. And when you were talking about how you're competitive no matter what the stakes, and that was really kind of part of your core, I was a little surprised that you didn't jump into tournaments earlier, because it's one of the things I really love about them too, is that it feels more like a pure competition than a cash game, because as you talked about before, you can't even get into some games. The stack disparities, the pockets, the depth of your pockets is one of the most important things in a cash game sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many other factors, being able to leave early, come late, all of this. But in a tournament, it's more fair. It's more of a, we've set the rules of this game, of this competition. And
yeah, my skills are actually more adapted to cash games because I'm not a bad steamer.
Yeah.
In a tournament, people steam, they lost the hand, they're out. They can't really throw off more money. That's one of my biggest edges, is that when I lose a pot, you saw me lose a pot to Tom Dwan, where I lost aces to king queen.
Yep.
The first thing I did is go to the bathroom, wash my face. You don't see that on TV. I still end up winning $250,000 that session. But the thing is, I don't steam as much as other people. A lot of my money, like you'll have games where it's the same people every time. There are days I was the worst player in the game where other people are ahead and I'm behind, and days where I'm the best player in the game because they're stuck and they're still playing, and they're playing badly. So those psychological advantages are a part of my biggest strengths. I don't have those edges in a tournament the way I do in a cash game.
Right.
So I am more skilled at cash poker. It suits me better, but I like the fairness, like we were talking about, and the competition, like you're talking about. I do like that in tournaments.
Yeah, that's a really good point with that psychological side. Like you said, when they tilt, they're out. So really, the people who are left in a tournament are either just incredibly lucky, or they're the ones who still have their heads on right? Because everybody else is gone. So you've filtered down to the people who are, at least for the day, still playing with a level head and still on top of their mental game, right? So yeah, I'd never really thought of it that way.
You can always see when you're playing cash games, someone who builds up chips and destroys them too, that guy's going to win a tournament.
Yeah.
Someone who stays the same all the time, that guy's drawing dead. Okay. So in the cash games, that guy's okay to play with, because when he's tilting and he's down, you're going to empty him out. In a tournament, though, he's going to get busted early, but he's going to get Chino Ream. He's my friend. Chino, if he's in the money, or Mike Mizraki, they're going to not be a short stack. They're going to have chips, because that's just Quan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
They're all friends of mine. So I could see even before, these guys are playing these, I said, you're going to do well in tournament. I just see the way your chips go in a cash game. That type of volatility is good for tournaments, because tournaments aren't linear. The payouts aren't linear.
Yep. Nope, that's always been my strategy as well. I want to be out early, or I want to have a mountain.
Right.
Yep. Where were it? I think the second half of what Derek was trying to get at was then. So we talked about how things blew up and kept you in poker. How do you kind of feel like poker is health-wise, right, with all the changes since then? So we kind of went from Poker Boom to Black Friday, and now I think most people would agree we're recovering from Black Friday quite nicely now. But, how do you feel about the future of poker, or the state of poker with the solvers, with all the coaches, with all the sophisticated answers, right?
I've never used a solver, but I've heard people say, hey, the solver says do this certain percent of the time, type of stuff. So, I'm sure they're useful tools. If I was your age or younger, or you said Derek's 50, let's say if I was in my 20s, I'm sure I would use that stuff to help me. But at my age now, maybe it would help me, but you kind of realize I'm playing mixed games throughout the year.
Yeah.
I only play No Limit Hold'em at the World Series.
Yep.
I think most of my flaws at No Limit Hold'em are more that just I'm older, I'm not as good, I'm out of shape, not even physically, but mentally, as far as adjusting to the game. A specialist always will have an edge on someone who's not a specialist, because they're in tune with the game.
Yep.
So the first day I come to the World Series and play the first $500 event or whatever it was that I did, I'm basically trying to get back to playing from memory, which, of course, the older I get, the worse my memory is. And then I'll get better and better and better. I'm not going to be anymore as good as the best players who have, all the tools. They're sharp kids. They're in their primes. So, you're not going to be as good. And whether it's sports, poker, anything, games evolve, athletes evolve over time. We know that. They get better. So, of course, the good players are going to have learned things that I don't know. But I don't even have any reason to know them, because it's still about, can I figure out what I want to get as close to, which I'm not as good at as I once was, as playing what a bridge player would call double dummy, meaning you see everyone's cards. I want to get as close to reading what he has based on his physical actions, his betting amounts, his different things, to where I can put him on a hand, and now I can play. I don't need a computer anymore to play.
Perfectly.
What do I think this guy will call when I have the best hand? What's the best sequence? What do I think the guy will fold to when he has the best hand, but it's marginal because of other things I've seen him do? I'm still at some level playing what I call poker, which nowadays they probably don't, because they play more solvers, what I call blackjack. Mine's more figuring out what the guy will do.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about, playing like you can see their hand. There was somebody I think it was on our Twitter, threw out a story about you they wanted us to ask about, and they said there's a rumor that you were able to win against one of the super users back in the online day. You were playing against the super users, and you still won.
An ultimate bet. on Ultimate Bet?
Well, I don't know. I won big on Ultimate Bet because you got to remember, in the early years of online poker, those people were a lot. They thought they were as good as like someone like me, but they weren't. Some of them quickly, the better ones, got to where online they were equal and eventually better. Live, they were in very bad shape. Okay, but in the early days, I played on Ultimate Bet because they had the first big games. And it was really easy for me to beat those games because I was just better than them, better than the online players at that time. And like I used to make a bet. There was a PLO game that had a $2,500 buy-in. And if I went bust, I buy another $2,500. And I used to bet people that I will get to have more than 50,000 in front of me. Now that didn't mean I wasn't in like 10 buy-ins, 25,000, but playing fast, tripling up, playing whatever. And I remember I used to have like Twan Lee and Tim Fan and people who you guys probably know watch me play. And I'd say, anyone want to bet me? It would usually take me an hour or two to get to 50,000. Now, sometimes I'd play fast. The first buy-ins are ships, trying to triple up. But I could get to 50,000. I would I would win them as a big favorite to do that within a few hours.
That's
okay.
action. Yeah.
And these people were just really, really bad. Okay. PLO was kind of a new game then too. I wasn't even necessarily, I won a bracelet in PLO, but it wasn't like I was necessarily that good at PLO, but I was better than them. And so I could win. And I remember there was a 300, 600 triple draw I could win good money at. So I won, and I'm sure I won several hundred thousand. I don't know that I won a million on it. I can't remember. It's too long because I was mainly playing live poker. But when they did the thing where they gave the readouts and they gave you your hand histories, they accidentally gave people the hand history. I got them where they gave me them, and I gave them some people who would study to see if I got cheated. Now, I didn't get a refund. I don't know for sure that I got cheated. I know I won. I probably didn't get super used badly like some people did. Some people got several $100,000 settlements when they came back to life, So I didn't get any settlement. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if you played online poker, you've probably gotten cheated.
That's for sure.
By collusion or by something, or a multi-tabling or whatever it is. You've gotten so it's not that I haven't gotten cheated and won, and I've probably gotten cheated and lost. But in this particular instance, maybe I was just luckier than some of the other people. Maybe I didn't play with Russ Hamilton or whoever else was doing it, and some other people played more with them. I usually knew because I was playing in the bigger game. I usually knew who I was playing with.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So that helped too.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes. So talking about like the LA poker ecosystem. So I guess that you haven't. You have played at least semi-frequently, I guess, over the last few years. So what do you think are some things that the LA poker rooms can do better?
Well, one of the things for a while, like we lost, he's playing a stud game that we lost because the people had abused the dealers so much.
Yeah.
And the Commerce, the friendliest place in poker, would not protect the dealers.
No.
On the East Coast, it's kind of funny how it's very different than the East Coast. At some point, I had to go to the East Coast because the games were bigger there than they were in the LA.
Did you go to Parks? You ever go to Parks for Tuesday games?
I did when it first opened up.
Yeah.
We had a guy we played with. We played like 3 and 600 mix or something like that.
Yeah, because I was over there when it first opened, and I remember everyone would murmur when guys like you showed up.
Yeah. So I showed up. 1 year or 2 years is the most I played at Parks, just for like a trip, like a 2 week to a month trip.
Gotcha.
I stayed at Borgata, played Borgata on the weekend, and Parks on the weekdays.
Yeah, gotcha.
But the difference between Borgata and the East Coast and LA is really funny. In LA, the people abuse the dealers and get away with it. It's getting better, but it used to be really, really bad. And in the East Coast, you get immediately picked up and barred for a day, a week, even a month, or whatever. They don't allow you to abuse the dealers, but they abuse each other constantly. That you can do. They swear at each other, call them all sorts of names. It's actually hysterical. What's hysterical is the World Series put in a no abuse rule where you couldn't swear at the table. If you did, you'd have to sit out a round. And they did the first year. And it kind of worked, but people swear they get picked up, they'd have to sit out a round. They tried that at Borgata. They used the F word as their main adjective. The first time they tried that at Borgata, Ty, who's the tournament director, comes over and says, "How come no one's dealing?" And the dealer said, "Everyone's got a penalty. What do we do?" They all have penalties. So on the East Coast, they couldn't have that as a rule. And that's why the next year at the World Series, we had to change it to you could swear, but you can't abuse people. You can say F, you can't say F you to someone like you're mad at them. You get it? So now the rule is swearing's okay, but abuse is not okay.
Yeah, I wonder why I don't have more strict punishments for dealer abuse in LA. It's interesting. I didn't know they did it on the East Coast.
They're so afraid to lose players because usually the abusers are like the main guys for the game.
Yeah.
What happened actually that killed the whole stud game was this one guy. We used to play with a bunch of Persians, and they would swear. I'd learned how to say, I don't even say the words in English, in Farsi, and they would call the dealers all these very not nice words, especially the women. And then this one woman says, "I know what you said," and starts like yelling at the guy because her husband was Persian. So she knew these words and she knew some Farsi. And now the guy starts calling her a whore and all this stuff. Now they had to bar him. And that was the end of the game. We never had, believe it or not, that day was the end of the stud game that was at the Commerce.
That's unbelievable.
The big stud game. When this guy got barred because they started making it a home game and now it never came back.
Man.
So the reason is because they don't want to ever bar the live players. They used to have some live players who would intentionally sit in the one seat. So if they lost a pot, they could step on the dealer's foot.
Oh, my goodness.
And they would get barred. I know one guy, I can say his name, Little L, got barred for life probably 50 times. Okay.
There's something wrong with that sentence.
But then the game would die, and then they'd have to have him back. See, well, the reason they get him back is he get barred at the Commerce, so then the bike would invite him to be the host for the game. Then the Commerce say, "We got to get him back. We just lost it was like the Raz game, 400, 800 Raz. We got to get him back." So the problem was there were multiple casinos. So you bar the live guy at your casino, the other casino invites him.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's wrong, even for cheating and different things and abuse, they don't work together.
Yeah.
They've never worked together except for raising the rake.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they do together. And so it's really messed up. So if someone cheats at one casino, they get to play at another casino.
Yeah.
They don't share that information. It's really bad that they don't do that together.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, and I wish that were more the case. As far as tournaments go, a lot of the tournament directors, they have talked together in the past, so at least they coordinate a little bit, but not on the important things like that. You're right. And that just reminds me, that's just one more reason that I really like tournaments more than cash because, especially with them growing, like you said, being much bigger, they no longer rely on just one whale to play, right? They no longer, if one person, you can kick that one person out and it will not kill your tournament the way it will kill your big cash game. So that's another, just take some of the power away from those jerks, right? From those people who abuse and mistreat people. So just another reason I like tournaments more. We have in the chat a couple people saying that it is getting better. Julie in the chat saying it's getting a little better. The card rooms are starting to come down on people who are, hate talking and abusing, especially like the female dealers, that kind of thing. We got Patrick in the chat just basically saying you the man. We got Frank here asking if you have any more really good stories about, probably from back during the boom, but just any more stories with some of the big names and some of the big, just any other really cool stories that people maybe haven't heard before. He's asking, like, I think he says you used to be roommates with Phil Ivey. Did he live with you for a while while he was down here, or?
No, he would just. I had him babysit one time I had to pick up my girlfriend at the airport, and I had a Ms. Pac-Man machine. People know this story. And I said, "Can you watch my kids for me?" He'd come over. He used to have his wife drop him off at the casino, so I'd have to drive him back to his place, and he could ask me questions. But one time he came over for some reason. He came over to my house. And I said, "Can you watch my kids? I got to go to the airport." He said, "Well, can I play the Miss Pac-Man machine?" And my girlfriend's really good at Miss Pac-Man. Phil's real competitive at everything. We went to the airport. I went to the airport, picked her up, came back. He was still on the same game. Totally looped the thing, blitzed the thing. Phil's good at those things, like certain things, pop a shot. He's better than NBA players because his hands are a little smaller than a lot of those guys. Like pop a shot. Have you ever done that thing?
Yeah.
I maybe get 45. You look, the high score will be about double what I get, maybe 90. And Phil will come in and say, "Anyone want to bet me against the high score?" And he'll get 120. He's just boom, 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 like a butter. Okay. And so he's good at certain things. He's just a real competitive guy, too. Phil would have been good at anything he did. When he was 17 or 18 years old, he was selling subscriptions to some magazines or something. One of those phone call jobs. He was the best salesman. He's just a guy who was always going to succeed.
Yeah, he's a sharp for sure. We also have Scala was asking something in chat. And
wait, one more funny story.
Yeah.
You remind me about the big names. One time Doyle says we used to move where we play based on what deals they give us, the food spread, no rake, stuff like that. Anyway, Doyle calls me one time, "Boy, Barry, we got a really good one now. We're going to Ramparts. It's in Summerlin." I said, "Who's playing?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "I thought you said it was a good game." He says, "No, they got the best pork chops you've ever eaten." So to Doyle, it was all about the food spread.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that about Doyle. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, he weighed 400 pounds when I first met him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Scala was asking in chat if you were still lobbying for online poker in California. I guess I didn't realize that you were. Is that something that you're doing?
I did. I spent $500,000 of my own money.
Wow.
I maxed out what I could in different years. I lobbied in Washington. One thing I did is pretty interesting since we have elections coming up. I got to see about, while we were lobbying, I was on Fox News, on MSNBC, and I went and I'd see all these different senators and representatives. And it was at a time when they couldn't introduce bills that increased debt. They had to have revenue. So they were really interested in hearing about poker because we could say you could get tax revenue. Then they'd say, "Oh, I can couple it with this thing I want to do," Mm-hmm. So I got to talk to them. One thing I did, I don't think it'd be true today because things have become so polarized. I would never look to see if they were Republican or Democrat before I go into office. The staffers that you talk to first, they're people in their 20s who are really good people, sharp people, who first they say, "Why do you want to see Senator so-and-so?" And then you tell them what you're doing. They then tell the senator, "This is why he wants to see you." And let's say I had 20 appointments. They were actually all reasonable people. And I could not tell if they were Republican or Democrat. It's until they get in a group and then they all have to vote the party way and say bad things. Our politics have devolved to where both parties feel their main job is to make sure the other party never gets anything done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really devolved. But in that day, we would have these little tournaments with it could be a Republican guy from Texas, Democratic guy from Tennessee. I remember the guy from Texas, the guy Cohn from Tennessee, where it really didn't matter like it does now what party they were so much when I first went. Now, I did know that Fox News was not very nice to me because they wanted to not have online poker because now that was a guy who was running for Republican president is the guy who shut down. He attached online poker being shut down to what's called the Port Act, UIGA.
Yep.
His name was Christ, and they supported Republicans. They had me on, and they sat me in a dark room, and they said, "When the red thing comes on, you're on." And I had to sit through a couple segments, and really, I could looking through this camera. They made me as uncomfortable as possible. It's like a trick they pull. I don't know if they still do, to make it so you're going to come off badly. They really got me. And the first thing they said is, "Why do you think people should be able to apply online? They could lose their house." At first, I didn't know they were even talking to me. But then I look, I see, the red lights. I'm in this dark room. And I said, I hesitated and whatever. I didn't do that good a job. And I remember I just said, "Well, you can't put your house online." And that's about all I said. They said, "Well, we think a lot of people get hurt," and that was about it. And I was on MSNBC, treated me in a better room and nicer because they were Democrats. I'm not saying Democrats are better than Republicans. I don't ever like to put down either party, because it's become so polarized. And I've been around the world. People play in terms of Republicans or Democrats, and now it's like if you say you don't like a candidate, people take it like you don't like their mother, you don't like their religion. Yeah. They take it so personally.
Yeah, it's way out
that
of hand.
It ends up. People a lot of times will say, "Why aren't you more outspoken about things?" It's not that I don't have opinions; it's that my opinions aren't going to sway anyone anyway. I'm just a poker player, and all I'm going to do is make people more defensive.
Yep.
And so I would rather just go issue by issue and say, well, most issues there's an argument on each side, and here are the pros and cons, and let's work it out. But the problem, again, there's so much polarization that most people are, no, this is 100% right, and that is 100% wrong. Guns are 100%, nobody should have them, or guns are 100%, everyone say, it's like, no, there are arguments on both sides and why we have certain things. And so all these things do have sides, but people don't want to. They'd rather just defend their issues. That's the way. The way cable television presents this stuff. And it really is a poker player. And this is another reason I bring it up. In California, you get a lot of ballot measures, and they all come out and say, "Do you want a good life for yourself, your family, and your children?" Both sides end up telling you that. Then vote for this or don't vote for that. They say, what the heck's going on? They're both saying I'll have a better thing for I remember at the last election, they had the dialysis thing. Do you want people to have to be able to afford dialysis? And my girlfriend's saying, which side are you on? I'm saying, I keep changing every day. Every time I hear a radio commercial, they say, this way patients will be able to get dialysis. And the other one saying, no, this way they'll be able to get dialysis. And eventually you just realize everybody lies to you. All the politicians lie. If you're going to listen to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump now, they're all going to start promising you things they can't deliver on, they won't deliver on, they have no plan to deliver on. And a lot of times the president doesn't even have authority to deliver on it without Congress anyway.
That's the funny one.
But they're in the promising stage, and the previous stage was the move towards the middle stage. Say, no, I don't support the far left or far right thing. I'm more tired towards the middle. They go through these stages. It's all a bunch of lies that they're telling you. And even though everyone will say, no, my party doesn't do it as bad as your party. That's why I don't like either party. And I always used to vote third party, some third party thing. To just say, I believe in the system of government with elections, but I think our system is broken. That's basically what my vote is.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to split off into a politics podcast. We would be here all night. But
one last thing for poker players. When you want to decide what to vote, because they're all going to be lying to you, look at who's supporting each thing and choose to vote with someone you trust. Or some group. That's about all you can do. Yeah. Because everybody's going to be lying to you.
Yeah, definitely take a look at the issues, look at the history, try and do it.
Well, that's a good poker strategy.
Yep.
That I'm trying to give you.
All right. No, appreciate it. Appreciate the tip. That's probably a very important one, as you said, because of the season and because of the time. Barry, it's been fantastic having you on. It's been great talking with you. It's really awesome to finally meet you and get to have a nice chat with you. I hope we do see you more often down in LA.
Well, I'm actually gonna plan another trip to the LA area and stalk you out in the bike tournament and avenge that aces against jacks.
You never should have told them that time.
Yeah, it's not like I'm old. My memory's not what it was, but I'm not going to forget that.
It won't be hard. I will guarantee give you many chances. I recommend if you make that trip down here, come on down. I think the next really exciting thing we're going to have is the circuit event back in November at Commerce. That'll be the next really exciting thing. But if you need to come before then, the bike's having an MSPT, and that is something we're gonna. That's something we're gonna chat about now. So. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Barry. I can't wait for you to come and stack me. It's going to be amazing. Let me know. Shoot me a message when you're coming down. I'll be sure to come down to the bike that day.
Sounds good. Okay, nice talking to you guys again.
Thanks so much, Barry.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Man, so let us, we're already at about an hour and a half, guys, but we're going to go ahead and hit you with all of our local results and what's going on next week around town. And as I already alluded to, we had that announcement. I just saw it on Twitter today. I don't even know if the bike is pushing it yet, but MSPT's Twitter put out the announcement that they are going to be at Big Poker October. So why don't we jump in and check out some
That's
of the
huge.
results from last week?
It's so funny. It's just so funny that the bike hasn't promoted it yet when it's like the biggest news that they've had all year.
Yeah.
And MSPT has promoted it.
I know, right? I wonder if there's some miscommunication there. We'll find out soon.
Yeah.
So let's hop back last week. I believe we left off. The last thing we saw results for were the Commerce Hold'em Series event number 2. So here's event number 3. It was a $400 Omaha 8 event. They had 41 entries, and the winner was Ruben Vera. So congratulations to Ruben. Other people who cashed this thing was Jack Polevoy, George DeCambio, Octaviano Duran, Fabian Sanchez, Robert Turner, and George Alba. Is it George or Jorge? George Alba. So congrats to everyone who cashed that. We have some more results. Let me zip through these guys. So we also have the results from event number 5. So in event number 5, that was Omaha 8 Stud 8, only 24 players in this one, and George Alba got first in this one. So it looks like all 3 of them chopped, honestly. They all have the same prize here, so congratulations to George, also to George Rechnitzer, and to Marshall Ragir. Those guys all chopped that up. Event number 7 was the Heroes event, $400 Heroes event. They had 42 entries. Ophir Attar took that one down. It looks like they chopped this one as well. I'm guessing maybe top 4. Second place was Michael Fujimoto. Third place, Sirius. That's a tough one. Bagchurasari. Fourth, David Margolis. Fifth, Lori Broda. And sixth, Benet Karp. So congrats to all of you. Event number... and those are all of the ones that they've posted there. And then we also have a post from the blog itself for the Mystery Bounty event. So congratulations. Here's the final table, and what a good looking final table it is. You may see one of our hoodies there and a Master of Mystery Bounties. So congratulations to everyone who made this final table. Big props to our boy Frank there. He was somehow doing he was doing full coverage of this event while he was final tabling it. Way to go, man.
Unbelievable. If you haven't been following our Instagram account, you should see what Frank has been doing too. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. You probably have a picture up there if you've been playing as well and you don't even know it. So everyone, if you didn't jump on following the Instagram account before because I was posting maybe once every 5 months, jump on there now. It is now... I can say pretty confidently that our Instagram account is now the most up-to-date and best source of news on what's happening in the big events that we talk about here every week. Frank is in the field, posting constantly, getting pictures of all the players and all of the significant stuff. It's fantastic, so get on there. So let's say congratulations to Armin Pogashian for taking first place, along with the bounties. It was chopped, and we'll look at that in a second. So with the chop in his bounties, he got over $30,000, and that is a new high score for Armin. So congratulations to Armin. In that chop, we have, I believe it was Frank can correct us, but I believe it was a top 7 or a top 8 chop. So the other people in that chop, Aaron Ingram, second place in the chop. Jay Jackson, third. Kevin Babayan, fourth. Christopher Prezati, fifth. Franklin, sixth. And Eugene Tito, seventh. I could say that because they got the exact same amount. Bounties in all. Eighth place, Gabriel Bertal. And ninth place, Tianyi Ma, rounding out the final table. So congratulations to all of you guys.
Gabriel shipped $20K for eighth?
So these are with bounties, right?
Oh, with the bounties.
Yep. So right. I think Gabriel pulled the 10K at least.
Yeah.
Yep. And so another shout out here. The person who pulled the 20K, which was the big bounty, was Daniel Song here in 17th. So that's why he has 21 or 21.8 here. So way to go there. I did cash this one as well, as is my way. I get max pain in mystery bounties, always bagging, never bountying. I cashed down here in 27th. This is the correct amount for 27th because I had 0 bounties. And, some other folks here. We have Paul Cortez, who final tabled, I believe, the big 4. Edward Liu right behind him, cashing there. Some other Sean Gill down here, Shooter cashed this guy as well, Wong Do, and Paul Wynn, of course. So a lot of familiar names cashing this event. Congrats to all of those guys. Yeah, and of course, Eugene Tito's just, if there's a mystery bounty, he's going to final table it, I feel like. Hopping over to Commerce on, which day was this? September 7th, it looks like. Maybe it's September 6th. Oh, the Friday night event. Here you go. So last Friday night, we have another money maker, Bo Adam Moneymaker, very sharp dressed man here, aka Jacket, was the chip leader when they chopped 4-way at the Garden. So congratulations, Moneymaker got 6K, a little over 6K for his chop. Rami Nabi got almost 6K. River Win got 4.5, and Jackie Lee 4. And man, Jackie is having quite a month because he did really well in the opening Commerce event, and he did really well in another one. I remember reading his name off. I've just been seeing him everywhere. So Jackie's having a really great couple weeks here as well. Kevin gave us.
Sometimes I feel like the Gardens is like a whole universe because I've never seen this person before. But how would I not have noticed this jacket?
This
yeah. Yeah. So I feel like sometimes I'm just in an alternate universe where I'm just not at the Gardens enough.
The Gardens kind of is an alternate universe.
And
yeah, highly recommend for people to get down there. We'll talk about the rest other events soon. And then the 10K bounty on Sunday, and that was only $150 buy-in, remember, guys. But they had 319 entries there, and they had almost a $32,000 prize pool there. So that's insane for a $150 buy-in with $50 bounty in there. Congratulations to Conrado Orozco, Conrado Orozco for getting over 5K plus bounties when he chopped that thing 9 ways. And part of that chop, Jeremy Hamey, you're the Jeremy, 6th place in that chop, so still killing it over there in the daily. So I can't wait to pull up his Hendon at the end of the year and just have like 3 pages worth of Gardens dailies caches on there. It's gonna be a thing, a sight to behold, man.
Yeah.
So before we jump into what's coming up, I just want to do another little shout out. So it looks like, not in small part due to Frank making sure everybody knows about it, but people are starting to notice our Player of the Year race and are actually starting to, I don't know about excited is the word, but at least starting to kind of talk about it. The current leader, as you know, is Aaron Zhang, Zilong, and he put up a post here on his Instagram talking about, like, right now he's on top, and he's right. I don't think he's going to stay on top for much longer because, honestly, once all the results come out, I could see Frank getting pretty close to the top, man. Right now, Frank and Beth Hall are neck and neck at 53 and 52, but since these posts have gone up, Frank says he's made, I think, 2 or 3 final tables, right? And we've cashed all these things. Aaron was in the mystery bounty, but he did cash somewhere more in the middle numbers. He had a huge stack coming in, and I guess one of the bluffs did not go well, which just happens, right? So he had a chance to really kind of open up the race, but that's that. And I also saw Roscoe Hayden. He posted on his Instagram as well, saying that he's pretty stoked to be top 10 right now, even though he's going to have to slow down his playing, I think, for school. So it's really cool to see people starting to notice, starting to kind of get interested and get excited about this thing. So the
crazy thing about Aaron is actually at the end of day 1, he crippled me when we were about like maybe 8 or 9 from the money, and he had maybe like 90K and I had like 100K.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically we got it all in. I had like ace-6 of clubs or ace-7 of clubs, and he had pocket 8s and he won, which put him a little bit under 200K. But then he ended up like bagging, I forget, it was some absurd number. Yeah, like he bagged like over $1 million with only like 8 people left. Start from 200K. So I don't even know how that happened. It was unbelievable when I saw his chip stack.
Yeah, that's unusual. That's definitely unusual. He must have had some of that 2200 rating chess things going on.
Good luck, yeah.
Right. All right. So I would like to do 2 things. One, let's bring up the MSPT post about the bike, and we can just keep wondering why the bike doesn't have an announcement. But here's the official on Twitter here. MSPT Bicycle Casino, November 5th through 10th will be the MSPT. So it looks like the tail end of the Big Poker October, and it's going to feature a $1,100 buy-in for 500K guarantee on November 7th through 10th. This is exactly the same structure as the SoCal Special. So this is awesome. We're going to have two 500K guarantee 1100 events in here. And, and then right on the heels of that, we'll be coming back to the circuit event that will be coming in later in November. So this is awesome. This is such great news. Super exciting to see the bike partnering with another kind of big national festival. And MSPT, I'm excited. I've played in one or two MSPTs and I had to travel for them. I'm really excited to be able to play it more locally and get a shot at some of those trophies.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played an MSPT event, so I'm actually really excited too.
Yeah, they have really nice structures, and the thing is they've kind of fine-tuned their structures for exactly what we have been saying, right? They fine-tuned them for that multi-flight, finish up on Sunday, play late into Sunday, and you're done. Work, 9 to 5 worker-friendly structures and such. I haven't really played many either because the closest ones that come to us usually are down, I think, in Siquan. Is that right? Either Siquan or Hamul.
Right, like San Diego.
Since I live way north of LA, it's just way too far for me to drive. It's like, almost 4 hours for me to drive down there. I think some of the folks that play that live more in Orange County, Irvine, south of LA, they are able to make that and play those, but it's just too far for me. And our guarantee is bigger anyways, so this is going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. So that's huge news. Can't wait to see the schedule now. And then other than that, another series I want to kind of point out that's starting this week is the Lucky Lady Fall Kickoff. Now, we'll go a little more in depth into this next week, but I just want to bring it up, especially because it starts this week. They have their Fall Kickoff 30K guarantee this Saturday, and then they're going to have two multi-day events. One is a 75K guarantee, and one is a 100K guarantee. Interestingly enough, they are guaranteeing 20K for first place in the 100K, so that could lead to an interesting payout structure. And I took a quick look at the structures, and we will look more closely. I'll bring them up later. But one thing I want to point out is for those who are trying to do some comparisons, the 75K, it's a higher buy-in, but it is a way, way better structure, especially for day one. It's interesting. You get way more chips. The structure, I looked at the structure sheets, it's way better. They do this really strange thing where the last two levels before buy-in, they actually increase the length of them to an hour, and then they go back down to a half hour. Very strange. But it just in terms of what levels exist, much better structure. I recommend that Event 6 over the Event 9. Now, the Event 9 structure is really turbo-y. They skip a lot of levels. And the other thing is it's a $235 buy-in, and the rake is, I think, $65. So it's a brutal rake amount. So, like, honestly, I can't really recommend that one for anyone who's, like, I can't recommend that being a very profitable tournament. Someone's going to win 20 grand. They're guaranteeing it, but it's just massively huge rake. Terrible, not great structure. The one thing to note on that one, though, is that there's a $1,000 bag bonus. 1 in 8 advance. It's 12% advance. So if you do kind of slip in, then it's the prize pool portion you're contributing is like 175 or something, or 170. 1,000 is kind of the correct amount. So maybe for a small, for the cheaper buy-in, it's kind of okay to go for bag bonuses. But the structure's still really bad. Jeff's in the chat kind of talking about. Sorry, yeah, I probably should have played that before I started talking about the events. Jeff's in the chat talking about his points from his spreadsheet and from those tournament evaluation things that we were talking about before. And yeah, he's saying that the 75K has tons of points. It's a high-rated one in that breakdown. So my quick look, I agree. 75K I definitely recommend over the 100K. 100K is cheap. That's really all it has going for it, but the rake is massive. All right, so I already kind of hit the thing. I'm not even going to play the whole intro. We're trying to make up lost time here. Over at Commerce, let's talk about what's happening this week. What should you play? Over at Commerce, the big tournament for this week is the XL Bounty, or what are they calling it? They're calling it the XL Bounty.
XL Bounty, yep.
XL Bounty started today, and also this week, you may have noticed if you've been over there, today is the last day, I believe, that they're down in the Galleria. They'll be back in the ballroom, I believe, starting tomorrow. So that is good, but I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know if they posted them anywhere for the XL Bounty. I hope they're okay, but starting so early in the week in the Galleria, I would believe it if it weren't great. But they will be having 2 flights a day starting later in the week, and the second flight is a little more turbo than the morning flight in this 600, I do believe. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so the turbo has 30-minute and then I believe 25-minute levels to finish up, and whereas the regular XL Bounty are they 30-minute all the way through, or are they 40-minute all the way through? In any event, those flights are going on at 12 and 5 throughout the week. Starting Thursday, they have 2 flights. So on Wednesday, they're still only going to have 1 flight, and that's at noon. So they will be running Landmark Megas to get into that, $150 Landmark Mega satellites, and strangely, okay, good. They do still have their 150 deep stack on Wednesday, but once they start the second flights, they will not be doing the 150 deep stacks anymore. So that weird, strange thing they were doing to compete with themselves in the Mystery Bounty afternoon flights, they will not be doing that for the XL Bounty. So that's nice. So that happens this week. On Sunday, if you don't make day 2, they'll have a 30K guarantee at noon and a 10K guarantee at 4, just like they did last week. Over here, as I said, the Lucky Lady has their fall kickoff. Oh, that's actually structures. They have that starting. So on Friday, they have a 20K guarantee, $200 buy-in starting at 5. Saturday, it starts at 3. That's a 30K guarantee for $250. And on Sunday, they just have a bounty event with 15K guarantee. This is actually a pretty busy week for this buy-in level, because the Hollywood Park this weekend actually has some pretty good events themselves. They have a 25K $100 bounty on Friday. Saturday, they just have their 10K bankroll builder, but Sunday is their 50K Sunday special, and that is the 50K guarantee $360 buy-in. That starts at 10 a.m. Reg goes till 1:30. So that is the one I would recommend to everyone if you do not bag up for the XL Bounty at Commerce. Now, that one will not count for player of the series because Hollywood Park does not report results. So, you got to take that trade-off. And then, as always, the Gardens will be having its regular weekly dailies, which will be huge because they're always huge. The SoCal Fall Special does not start until the end of the month. Whew, all right. I think that is all of the events. I apologize if that was a little hectic. You can rewind, watch it again. Basically, summary is play the XL Bounty, and then if you can't afford the XL Bounty, you've got great guarantees happening at Lucky Lady and at Hollywood Park all weekend. So check those out. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be a super fun weekend of poker. Awesome guest that we had. Barry was just regaling us with all his awesome stories. So it was a really, really fun episode.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining us in the chat, guys. It was really cool. We had it took us a little bit of time to get connected with Barry early, so we didn't have time to tell him to open up a second monitor with your chat in it, so he didn't get to read in real time, but I'm sure he'll take a look back and see everything, and it was really fun. Hopefully we will continue bringing you really cool guests and really fun episodes. If you have any good ideas, leave us comments, post and tag us online, and keep it tuned here, man. Make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe, so you don't miss anything the next time. And we will see you out there. Hopefully everybody's gonna go play this weekend because there's a lot of really awesome stuff going on.
Yeah, we'll see everyone at the tables.
Yep, we'll see you at the tables, guys.